The Galactic Senate Hall stood as the grandest structure in the universe, towering pillars of shining metal stretched high above, glowing with the soft energy of ancient technology. Hundreds of alien diplomats filled the massive chamber, their voices mixing into a chaotic hum as they debated, bargained, and argued over the future of the galaxy. Every species in the known universe had a representative here, except one. At the very center of the hall sat an enormous chair, larger than any other. Its frame was crafted from an unknown metal, dark yet shimmering under the artificial light. Dust covered its surface, untouched for centuries. No one ever sat there. No one even looked at it for too long. Vornak, a young diplomat from the Zorvax Dominion, had always been curious about this empty seat. He had studied galactic history, yet no record explained why it remained unclaimed. Every other species, even the smallest and weakest, had a representative. But Earth's seat was different. It was not just empty. It was avoided. Tonight, during a routine session, Vornak decided to ask the question that no one dared to speak. He rose from his seat, his blue-scaled face calm but determined. "Honorable Senate," he said, his voice echoing in the vast chamber. "I wish to ask about the empty chair at the center of this hall. To whom does it belong?" The room went silent. Every conversation stopped. Every eye turned toward him. The Senate leader, a towering insectoid from the Krell Empire, shifted uncomfortably. His mandibles clicked together in irritation. "That seat belongs to a species that no longer participates in galactic affairs," he said. "Let us move on." But Vornak did not sit down. "That cannot be. Every species, no matter how small, has a voice in the Senate. Why is Earth's chair left vacant?" A deep growl came from the other side of the hall. A reptilian warlord from the Drask Confederacy leaned forward. His yellow eyes locked onto Vornak. Because humanity was a mistake. Murmurs filled the chamber. Some senators exchanged nervous glances, while others shook their heads. Vornak frowned. "A mistake? What does that mean?" An elderly senator, her skin like cracked stone, spoke next. "They were dangerous." Her voice trembled. "Too dangerous." Vornak's curiosity burned even stronger. Then why were they allowed to join the Senate in the first place? The Senate leader's mandibles twitched. He exhaled, a slow, frustrated sigh. Because humanity did not ask for permission. Vornak's blood ran cold. "What do you mean?" Another silence. This time, it was heavier, filled with unspoken fear. Finally, the Senate leader leaned forward. His many eyes glowed under the dim lights. "They were different," he said. "Every species before them joined after centuries of slow advancement, after proving they could be trusted. But humans forced their way in." Vornak's heart pounded. "How?" The Senate leader glanced at the empty chair. "They arrived here unannounced, in a warship unlike any we had seen. No warning, no invitation. They simply landed, walked into this hall, and claimed a seat. They said they had been watching us for centuries. They knew everything about us, our strengths, our weaknesses." Vornak felt a chill run down his spine. "And the Senate allowed it." "We had no choice," the reptilian warlord hissed. "By the time we knew of their existence, they were already too powerful. Their technology, their tactics, they were not like any other species. Their warships could destroy fleets before the enemy even knew they were under attack. Their soldiers fought like monsters, never retreating, never surrendering. And worst of all, they adapted." The stone-skinned senator nodded. "That is why they were feared. No species adapts as quickly as humans. No species learns from their enemies like they do." Vornak swallowed hard. "But if they were so powerful, why is their seat empty now? What happened to them?" The Senate leader's eyes darkened. "They left." Vornak blinked. "Left." They abandoned their seat. One day, without warning, they vanished. Their colonies, their ships, even their homeworld. Gone. No transmissions. No signs of war. No evidence of destruction. Just silence. Vornak's mind raced. A species that strong did not simply disappear. Something must have happened. He turned back to the Senate leader, and no one knows why. The reptilian warlord's claws tapped against the table. Some say they discovered something they shouldn't have. Others believe they went into hiding, watching us from the shadows. There are even whispers that they are preparing for something. Something only they understood. Vornak sat in his dimly lit quarters, his datapad glowing softly in the darkness. The emptiness of Earth's seat at the Galactic Senate haunted him. The Senate's reaction to his questions had not been dismissive. It had been fearful. Why would the galaxy's rulers be afraid of a species that no longer existed? Something was being hidden, and Vornak intended to find out what. He tapped into the galactic archives, searching for Earth's history. At first, he found the usual surface-level information: coordinates, population estimates, and old trade agreements. But when he tried to access their deeper records, something unexpected happened. Access DNID. Vornak frowned. Every member species had public records available for study. Even classified information usually had summary pages accessible to diplomats. Yet, when he tried to open a file labeled Humanity's Military Development, a red warning flashed across his screen. Restrict HFY. ES. High clearance required. His heart pounded. This was no simple missing history. This was deliberate censorship. The Senate had erased something. Something they didn't want anyone to know. Vornak tried bypassing the restrictions using his diplomatic access codes, but the system instantly flagged him. Unauthorized attempt logged. He quickly disconnected, breathing heavily. If he continued this path, someone would notice. And from the way the Senate reacted earlier, he wasn't sure he wanted their attention just yet. He needed another way. The official channels were blocked, but there were other ways to get information. He had heard whispers of rogue historians and independent researchers who traded in lost knowledge. The Undernet, a hidden and illegal data network, was the best place to start. It was dangerous. The Senate punished those caught accessing the Undernet. But Vornak had no choice. If the truth about humanity was buried, this was the only way to uncover it. He activated his private access chip and dove into the hidden layers of the galactic network. Thousands of files flashed across his screen. Fragments of information, conspiracy theories, and historical records deleted from official archives. At first, most of what he found was nonsense. Some files claimed humans had been exterminated by an unknown force. Others suggested they had evolved beyond physical bodies and left the galaxy. A few even claimed Earth had never existed at all. Then one message caught his attention. They didn't vanish. They chose to leave. And they took something with them. Vornak's hands tightened around his datapad. This was different. This wasn't just speculation. This was a direct claim. He followed the message's data trail, tracing it to an anonymous user deep within the Undernet. After a few minutes, he found an encrypted file labeled "The Last Transmission from Earth." His heart pounded as he opened it. Static filled the screen at first, then a voice, calm, deep, and unmistakably human. To the Galactic Senate, the voice said, "We were never truly one of you. You feared us, and you were right to do so. But the decision has been made. We are leaving." Vornak leaned closer. The voice continued, "You think this is over. It is not. One day, you will understand why we left. And when that day comes, you will wish we had stayed." The transmission cut off. The screen went black. Vornak sat frozen, his mind racing. Humanity hadn't been wiped out. They hadn't gone extinct. They had left on their own terms. And the Senate was terrified of why. Vornak couldn't shake the feeling that he had just uncovered something dangerous. The transmission from Earth echoed in his mind. The humans hadn't vanished. They had left willingly. And they had left behind a warning. What had they meant? Why would the Senate fear their departure more than their presence? He needed answers, and the only place to find them was in the depths of the Undernet. Vornak reached out to a known information broker, a shadowy figure who went by the alias Cipher. He sent a coded request, looking for records on Earth, truth only. Minutes later, a reply came. Expensive and dangerous. Meet in person. Vornak hesitated. A physical meeting was risky, but he had no choice. If Cipher had real information, it was worth it. The coordinates led him to an abandoned trading post on the edge of Senate-controlled space. As he landed, his nerves tightened. The station was dark, barely functioning. The few occupants avoided eye contact. This was a place for people who didn't want to be found. He entered a dimly lit chamber where Cipher waited, a thin, hooded figure with glowing cybernetic eyes. "You must be desperate," Cipher said. "Not many ask about Earth." Vornak didn't waste time. What happened to them? Why did they leave? Cipher chuckled. "You don't want to know. I do." Cipher studied him for a moment before pulling out a data chip. "This is everything the Senate buried. And once you see it, there's no going back." Vornak hesitated only for a second before taking the chip. He plugged it into his data pad, and a series of classified reports appeared. The first one made his breath catch. Project Exodus, the human departure. He scrolled through the reports, his eyes widening at what he read. The humans had left not because they were weak, but because they were preparing for something. The Senate hadn't exiled them. Humanity had looked at the rest of the galaxy, at its corruption, its wars, its fragile alliances, and decided that staying was a waste of time. They had abandoned the Galactic Senate willingly. But they hadn't gone far. They had built something powerful. The last entry chilled him to the bone. Final log. They are watching. And when they return, the galaxy will tremble. Vornak's hands shook. Humanity wasn't gone. They were waiting. Vornak sat in his ship, staring at the data on his screen. His hands trembled slightly as he reread the last line. They are watching. And when they return, the galaxy will tremble. The weight of the words pressed on his chest. Humanity wasn't destroyed. They hadn't vanished into history like so many lost civilizations. They were out there, somewhere, waiting. Cipher watched him carefully. "You understand now, don't you?" Vornak nodded slowly. "The Senate, they knew. They've known all along." "They don't just know," Cipher said, leaning closer. "They live in fear of it. That's why they erased the records, why they pretend Earth was a failed world. If the truth got out, if the wrong people started asking questions," Vornak looked up, "it would shake the foundation of the galaxy." Cipher smirked. "Exactly." Vornak took a deep breath. He had to be careful. If the Senate was hiding this, then he was already in danger. He needed more proof. Something undeniable. "Where did they go?" he asked. Cipher hesitated. "No one knows for sure. The last confirmed human fleet sighting was over a century ago. They were seen leaving known space. No transmissions, no distress signals, nothing but silence." "But someone must know something," Vornak pressed. "A fleet that size doesn't just disappear." "There are rumors," Cipher admitted. "Whispers in the deep space colonies. Some say the humans built an empire in the void, beyond the Senate's reach. Others believe they found something terrifying." Vornak frowned. "What do you mean?" Cipher's voice dropped lower. "A warship. A fleet unlike anything the galaxy has ever seen. Some say it's a myth. Others claim it's real. A ship designed not just to fight, but to conquer." A chill ran down Vornak's spine. If humanity had truly built something that powerful, it explained everything. The Senate's fear, the missing records, the erased history. "Then I need to find it," he said. Cipher sighed. "If you do, you won't be able to go back. The Senate will hunt you. And if the humans are really out there, you might not like what you find." Vornak's mind was already made up. He had started down this path, and there was no turning back now. "If humanity is watching," he said, "then it's time someone watched back." He closed his data pad, set his ship's course, and prepared for the most dangerous journey of his life. Vornek's ship drifted in the void, far beyond the mapped territories of the Galactic Senate. The stars here were cold and distant, untouched by trade routes or patrol fleets. This was the edge of known space, where legends, rumors, and nightmares lived. His fingers hovered over the controls as he replayed Cipher's words in his mind. If the humans are really out there, you might not like what you find. The thought sent a shiver down his spine, but it was too late to turn back now. He had followed every lead, every whisper in the darkest corners of the Undernet, and they had all pointed him here, to the ruins of Outpost Zeta, a long-abandoned research station. Outpost Zeta was once used for deep space observation. Officially, it had been destroyed in an accident centuries ago. Unofficially, Cipher's files suggested something else, something far more sinister. Vornek activated the docking sequence and guided his ship toward the floating wreckage. The outpost was a crumbling mass of metal and shattered corridors, barely holding together after years of neglect. But as his scanners swept across the structure, something caught his attention. Power detected. That was impossible. He narrowed his eyes. If the station had power, then someone, or something, was keeping it running. His ship locked onto a docking port, and with a deep breath, Vornek grabbed his plasma pistol and stepped into the station. The air was stale, heavy with dust and decay. His boots echoed against the metal floor as he moved carefully through the dark corridors. Broken monitors flickered, showing distorted images, half-erased data logs, fragmented messages. Then one of the screens cleared. A symbol appeared. A simple, terrifying emblem. A red planet with black wings. Vornek froze. He had seen this symbol before. Not in Senate records, not in official history, but buried deep in the restricted archives. It was the last recorded insignia of Earth's military before their disappearance. His heart pounded. Humanity had been here. He stepped closer to the terminal, his fingers trembling as he activated the last recorded message. A grainy video appeared. A human stood in a dimly lit control room, his face shadowed, his uniform bearing the same red planet insignia. His voice was calm, but there was an undeniable edge to his words. To whoever finds this, know that we were never lost. The Senate lied to you. We left because we saw what was coming. And when it arrives, you will beg for our return. The video ended. The screen went black. Vornek staggered back, his mind spinning. They weren't just watching. They were waiting for something. Something the Senate feared so much that they erased every trace of Earth from history. And now, Vornek was the only one who knew the truth. A low, mechanical hum echoed through the outpost. The sound of a system activating. Then, from the darkness, something moved. Vornek's breath caught in his throat as a deep mechanical hum vibrated through the station. The darkness around him shifted, and he realized he wasn't alone. His hand tightened around his plasma pistol as he took a slow step back. The air felt thick, charged with an energy he couldn't explain. Then, from the shadows, red lights flickered to life. Not just one. Dozens. Vornek barely had time to react before the first shape emerged. A towering metal figure, humanoid in form, but clearly not alive. Its eyes glowed an eerie crimson, and its armored frame bore the same insignia he had just seen, the red planet with black wings. Then another stepped forward, and another. An entire row of them, lined up along the station's corridor, standing deathly still. Vornek's pulse raced. What were they? Automated war machines, human experiments, some kind of last defense system. A cold, metallic voice shattered the silence. Intruder identified. Access unauthorized. Vornek's mind screamed at him to run. He had seen enough horror stories to know how this usually ended. But something stopped him. The machines weren't attacking. Not yet. He swallowed hard and took a risk. I'm not your enemy, he called out. I'm looking for the truth. About Earth. About why they left. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the lead machine tilted its head slightly. Its voice, still cold and inhuman, spoke again. Truth requires clearance. Clearance requires authority. Authority requires identity verification. Vornak's mind raced. What did that mean? Did he need some kind of human authorization? Or, his eyes dropped to the screen where the last video had played. The human in the message. Was he the authority these machines were waiting for? Slowly, Vornak reached toward the console and replayed the message. The moment the human's voice echoed through the station, the machines reacted. Their red eyes flickered, their rigid postures adjusting slightly. Then, the lead machine spoke again. Command recognized, awaiting further instructions. Vornak's breath hitched. They thought he was with the humans. And if they believed that, he had just unlocked something far more dangerous than he had ever imagined. A nearby console powered on. Data began scrolling across the screen, revealing schematics, mission logs, and a single chilling line of text. Project Revenant. Final phase. Activation pending. Vornak didn't know what Project Revenant was, but he was about to find out. Vornak's eyes darted across the glowing screen as the words Project Revenant, Final phase, Activation pending burned into his mind. His hands trembled slightly as he scrolled through the data, desperate to understand what he had just uncovered. The machines still stood motionless behind him, their red eyes glowing like silent sentinels, waiting for orders. The station's systems had mistaken him for someone with authority, someone connected to the lost human fleet, and now he had access to something the Galactic Senate had tried to bury. The logs were fragmented, but one thing was clear. Project Revenant was not just a defense system. It was a war plan, a deep space mobilization order, centuries old but still waiting for a command. The coordinates of dozens, hundreds, of hidden human warships flickered across the screen. Ships that had vanished from history. Ships that the Senate claimed had never existed. Vornak's breath hitched. If these warships were still out there, waiting, humanity had never been defeated. They had left willingly. They had prepared for something. But why hadn't they returned? His fingers hesitated over the console. Then, a new log opened, a final message, buried beneath layers of encrypted code. The screen flickered. A human figure appeared. An admiral, his face lined with age and hardened by war. His eyes burned with something cold, something terrifying. The message played. If you are hearing this, then you have found what was meant to stay hidden. You have seen the remnants of our forces, and you have questions. The admiral leaned forward. The truth is simple. We left because the war wasn't over. Not against the Senate, not against any empire. We left because we saw the real threat. The one coming for all of us. Vornak's blood ran cold. They are still out there, watching, waiting, preparing. The admiral's expression darkened. The Senate lied to protect themselves. They buried our existence because they feared what would happen if the galaxy knew the truth. But the time for hiding is over, because soon they will return. And when they do, the screen glitched. The message stuttered. Then the final words came through, clear as a death knell. Humanity will rise again. The station trembled. Somewhere deep inside the wreckage, systems activated. And in the distant void of space, something woke up.